Hello and welcome. This is Rooflemonger and my friends. I got a little bit of a thought experiment for you today. What happens in a fighting game when a character isn't allowed to be good? Not that just they're bad. Fighting games have top tiers, mid tiers, bottom tiers. Like, that's normal. We have good and bad characters. That's to be expected. And whenever we have balance patches for the various games, the tiers shift a little bit. You know, maybe the top tiers go down a little bit, maybe the bottom tiers go up a little bit. But what happens when certain changes happen by design? When, say, a roughly so-so character gets brute force buffed to the top because the company wants them to be one of the best characters in the game? And when a character that is low tier or just outright bad is given nothing to work with because they do not want them showing up in competitive events. And I feel that's a very modern story because that is currently the story of Street Fighter 6. And real quick before we get into it, if I can just borrow a moment of your time, I've never brought this up in a video, but I have been nominated for Content Creator of the Year for the EVO Awards. And if I could get your vote for Content Creator of the Year, it would actually mean the world to me. You know, I've been here doing this fighting game thing since 1991, and I've been here since, and I ain't going anywhere. If you check the community tab, I already made a big gushing post all about that, so hey, check that out. But yeah, your vote is heavily appreciated. Thank you very much. Now back to the video. So hey, here we are, Street Fighter 6 character select, and we definitely got a bunch of characters we could talk about for the video that are on the lower tier and perpetually seem to be on the lower tier. Like, you know, we have Menon, and Menon is not good. And I know you might say, well, what about Akutagawa, the Japanese pro player? And yeah, like, what about him? Just because one person's really good with a character doesn't mean the character is good. Honda's been suffering ever since he made streamers cry when the game came out originally and paid the price, having some of his core movesets changed. And yes, he's been buffed several ways since then, but it doesn't particularly matter because he's still near the bottom of the barrel in terms of tier power. But for this video, like so many other times in the past, we're gonna focus on poor little Lily. Lily, you can argue, has basically been the worst character in the game since the game came out, and it hasn't changed at all, right? And I think she's pretty definitively the worst character now these days. And it's not the fact that they don't buff her, it's the fact they don't want her to be good. Now, what do I mean by that? So again, Lily's bad. There just is no arguing it. And you may have heard in the past, and this has come from me as well, that Lily needs just a fundamental redesign as a character. That she's so flawed, you need to kind of break her apart and just rebuild her from the start. And I still stand by that. I think she sort of needs her rework. Like, her whole build stock, burn stock system. There's other characters that build and burn stuff, but like, Lily's the least of those characters and by a lot. But what I mean by this is there's very obvious changes you could give Lily to make her such a better character that don't warp the game in any way, shape, or form, and they refuse to do it. Let me talk to you about some of the changes they made for the character since the game has come out. And again, keep in mind this is basically the worst character in the game, right? So since characters came out, what has changed? The target combo no one really uses that much, does a little bit more damage. Now, admittedly, the first hit's useful because you can go in EX Condor win. There's that, but the other hits, not so much, but it does a little bit more damage, sure. Her level 2 super does a little bit more damage, sure. She got some hyper-specific standing-only combos, and what do I mean by that? I mean stuff like this. So, if you have your buff up and you do Light Buster and only hit on the second hit, if you hit on the first hit, it won't work. So if you hit only on the second hit, you can get little juggles like that, right? In real match scenarios, it doesn't really mean anything. And again, this doesn't work on crouching characters either. You'll whiff the move and die. Like, very limited use, but technically you can file on her buff. Oh, we gave her a buff in the patch, right? And practical use in the end, useless. Now, speaking of crouching, so one thing they gave her is medium buster. Just regular buster, it doesn't need buff or anything like that. You can just do a basic 3-hit light combo and get the buster even on crouching people, right? So you can do the basic concept of do light attacks, you know, just hit him with lights, do a special move. Okay. She didn't get that till season 3 of the game. She could not, I repeat, could not do lights into a special move until season 3. Before season 3, if you did not have buff up, you couldn't get anything. Or a very bare minimum, you had to burn bar. So you had to have a buff or a bar to get a basic hit confirm like combo. That's how bad she has it. And she only finally got that ability in season 3 of the game. Because again, they don't want her to be good. Other little things like EX Condor Wind got a little bit faster. So like say forward heavy punch into EX Condor Wind is a true block string, no gap. So you can always get one buff stock. And they made it so it can combo off crouch medium kick, which her crouch medium kick is not very good, but it's technically a buff. You can say, oh, we buffed her, and then move on. And one of the more real buffs she got is her level 1 super, which admittedly is a pretty good level 1 super as it's one of the most damaging level 1s. They made it 3 frames faster, so it's better as a reversal, because she does not have a reversal. We'll talk about that. And it made her combo ability off certain moves just easier and unlocked a couple routes that didn't exist before. So like all in all, that's handy, right? That's nice. That's actually good. But that's basically it since launch. That's it. That's all. In the end, Lily, since launch is this. She dispenses Crouch Heavy Punch, and she'll get the buff, and then scream in with a Condor Spire, and probably EX Spire specifically, right? Because it's not enough that she's bad, right? She's also simple. She's boring to play. Her predecessor, T-Hawk, was anything but boring. He was bad as well. I'm a T-Hawk man. I love T-Hawk, right? He sucked, but he was a blast to play. She's boring, and on top of that, she's also one of the characters people want to fight the least, because she's also boring to fight. There's just little going on here. Now, compare that to, say, the Golden Boy. Okay, so now here we are on Ryu. And just to be clear, I'm happy Ryu's a very good character now. To me, Street Fighter's not Street Fighter unless Ryu is good. He's the face of the franchise. He's the face of the genre. It's good. Ryu is good. But this is a really clear case of if they want a character to be good, they'll force the issue. When Street Fighter 6 originally came out, Ryu was pretty like he was okay. He wasn't bad. But he wasn't Ken. Ken was way better, and everyone knew it, right? Like, of the two Shotos, because Akuma wasn't out yet, Ken was the one to go to. And the thing is, what they did with Ryu is, okay, we want to see Ryu in tournaments. We want to see him over and over again. We want him to see to be one of the most represented characters, right? So we're going to buff him. Did it work yet? No. Okay, we're going to buff him. Did it work yet? No. We're going to keep doing it until it happened, and then it happened. So, like, one of the first buffs he got in the first patches he got buffed, right, was just forward heavy punch. The solar plexus, right? It's really good in that this move. So if you block this, okay, it's his turn now. You got to guess, like, am I going to hit buttons? Maybe I'll walk him through it. Like, it's good in and of itself, right? And they made it so it's almost impossible to walk out of it if it would hit. Before, at launch, this move would not trigger your proximity block, even if it could potentially hit. Now, if it can hit, it'll freeze you in place to make sure you cannot walk out of it. So he'll always get those plus frames. Nice little buff. Also, same patch. Hashogeki, everyone loves Hashogeki, right? So they made Hashogeki safe on block. Light Hashogeki did not used to be safe on block. That's one of the building blocks of the character now. This is completely safe. And the heavy one, they made it so push it back less on block. So basically, did you block at these plus frames? Whoops, get thrown, right? So they made the basic Hashogeki package just a lot better than it was. And that's the same for the Denjin, by the way, too. That they just made it push back so you can always just get strike throw. So good changes, but okay. That wasn't enough to move the needle. Another patch, let's keep going. Okay, so he's not top tier yet. Let's try again. So numbers on everything changed. Like heavy punch got more advantageous. Overhead got more advantageous. Also got safer on block. Remember that forward heavy punch we talked about? They made that more plus on block. This used to be +1. Now it became +3. And if you happen to start a combo with it, it doesn't scale anymore. It used to scale. So okay, now we're just doing more damage. They made it so when you have your Denjin buff, you choose when to burn it. So you don't have to burn it with any button press, right? So only heavies will trigger the Denjin. So now, when you have a buff, you don't have to burn it with any given button press. Lily can't do that, by the way. She has to burn it with every button press. This is where Donkey Kick starts getting buffed, right? Like, so like Light Kick, Donkey Kick gets even faster. And now, combos from Lights. Didn't before. And they all start doing more damage. That does more damage. Medium does more damage. EX has faster startup than it did before. All those Hashogekis now do a lot more drive gauge damage on block than they did before, making it a lot scary to block all this stuff. They made his level 1 super faster startup and able to be done when his EX is on the screen. Meaning, if you get those situations where, like, the clash happens and you win a fireball war, like, that works now, and we'll get to more of that later as well. But, like, okay, so another round of buffs, and that's hardly all of them. There's a lot more, right? And was he top tier yet? Well, he's getting better. Not enough. Let's buff him again. So before the Street Fighter 2 Classic, crouch, medium kick, and the fireball, it could have gaps in it, right? So it wasn't as strong of a tactic in this game. So they changed it so with crouch, medium kick, and this heavy fireball specifically, there's no more gaps. You cannot just hit him through it like you could before, right? So now that became proper pressure. Didn't exist before, another good buff. Forward heavy kick can now go into meterless tattoos, couldn't before. Heavy axe kick, this is definitely a modern problem for the character, right? Heavy axe kick got faster startup and faster recovery and better on block. Even if you did it as close to him as possible, point blank on block, it's still safe on block. It wasn't before, now it is, and with faster startup and just better recovery, just better all around. And then EX Hashigeki, they gave it more damage too, why not? Okay, we're finally getting there, but he's not the best character in the game yet. Let's buff him again. Now Fireball, your basic Fireball, now does more damage, does more chip, has more hit stun. EX Fireball 2 does more damage. The Engine Fireball does even more damage. Level 1 Super, which was already buffed before, now the projectile's faster. Now with the buffs we already mentioned before, but like I can just do full screen EX Fireball into this without even like we're having a clash or whatever. I can just do that as a natural combo in and of itself. I don't even need buffs anymore, by the way. Like a full screen heavy Denjin Fireball, so no EX, will go into Super by itself. And then just for fun, they gave him like more knockdown frames after his level 3, right? So, okay, this is a character we want to be good. And we're going to patch and buff and buff and buff and buff till he's good. And yo, he's great. He's fantastic. He's one of the best characters in the game. And it's by design because they wanted him to be one of the best characters in the game. It was no accident, right? It's not just like, well, he's a little mid, like give him a little buff. This is by design. So he got the rocket strapped to him, went to the moon, and now he's definitively one of the best characters in the game. And once again, I'm happy about that. Ryu should be good. Now back to Lily. Do any of the buffs I told you about Lily sound anything like what Ryu got? No, because they don't want her to be good. They could make her good. There's a lot of easy changes you could give the character that would make her good, and they just don't do it. And now keep in mind when I say they don't want her to be good, it's not like some grand conspiracy or anything like that. I mean it in the just context of Ryu was a character they wanted to be at the forefront of the game's competitive scene, and they forced the issue until that was the reality. Lily, they don't have any such plans. Other characters, obviously, they have no such plans. They're okay with them just wallowing at the bottom. Now, I'm going to give you some hypothetical buffs for Lily you could give her that would maybe not even make her mid-tier, you know, let alone good, screw that. Just maybe not even mid-tier, but it's very realistic quality of life stuff they could easily give her. And again, these are not necessarily unique ideas. This could have happened a long time ago. They just don't care enough to do it. Okay, now let's talk buffs. So one of the things you can do with Lily, say you have a buff and you expire. One of the things you can do is a level 1 super after the fact, right? And, you know, that's a good little chunk of damage. How about if you could do it mid-screen? Like, this is one of the things you're ideally kind of forced in doing is just random expire, so why not give it some real kick? Now, I know you're saying, well, wait a second. Doing a random special move into a level 1 super mid-screen, that's too much reward. No one should be able to do something like that. And hey, maybe you're right, right? The thing is, Lily already used to have that against certain characters. Unfortunately, when she got the buff to make her super faster, she lost that ability. So it was character specific, but it was literally something she could already do. And I'm saying bring it back and just make it universal. So now just random spire just gives it a bit more teeth because the way her game plan is made, because she's forced to kind of interact this way, she wants to do this anyways. So make this a big home run swing if you actually get it. Another change I would like to see for Lily is the command grabs. It's ideally supposed to be one of the biggest parts of her kit, right? And the reality is, maybe not as much, right? Leave the characters closer to Lily. So if you want to drive rush right after the fact, she can already pressure a little bit, but make it just more real, make it more frame tight. And then wait a second, isn't that Oki after a throw, after a command grab? We can't have that. Having someone throw you, rooflemonger, and then being able to just get free pressure after the throw and potentially looping into more throws, that would ruin the game. We can't have a character do that. That's immoral. And hey, maybe you're right. But I would gladly sacrifice some of the damage off these command grabs. Like, you know, a few 100 points just for a little bit closer. So you drive rush after the fact, go for like a crouch heavy punch or something that is just that much more real, that much more of a threat. And then maybe you just let it rock. And then carry the drive rush momentum into another command grab, right? This is literally what T-Hawk already had. It's one of his most defining traits in Street Fighter 4 is that if you wanted to cash out for the damage, you did heavy command grab. If you wanted the pressure, you do light command grab, which doesn't do that much damage in the end, but it gave you a good setup. Say we do that for Lily too, like light command grab. So we knock a couple hundred points of damage off of it, so it's still better than regular throws, so you're still incentivized. But otherwise, this gives you the pressure, this gives you knockdown. Again, this is literally what T-Hawk does. She is literally T-Hawk. Like that is the point of Lily, is she is T-Hawk, right? So how about giving her some T-Hawk traits? Or even, let's give her more stuff to do with the buff, because the buff, to be real, the buff exists for Condor Spire. Like, you kind of don't want to use it for anything else. What if you had buff, and then that's exactly what happened. If you have buff, throw someone, the buff is burned by the command grab, and then you're closer. So you get pressure, you get Oki after the fact, right? You don't get any more damage or whatever, but you burn a stock, and then it just gets a little bit more scary. So there's something else to use the stocks for. Or better yet, hey, remember Condor Dive? Probably not. Condor Dive sucks really bad, right? And this is one of the moves that you will never actually burn your buff on, right? But technically can use the buff. What if you made this safer? Like, say, how T-Hawk had it. As it currently stands, even if you aim it correctly, even with the buff, like you aim it roughly at their feet, you're done like dinner. So how about this? If you have a buff and say you even burn a bar, burn an EX, right? And you aim and hit the enemy roughly at their midsection, you know, like a proper dive kick style thing, make it safer on block, or at the very least make it push further back away, so you're incentivized to burn the stock on something other than just random EX Condor Spire. Want the craziest idea of all? The one that would break Lily in half and tear the game in half? If she has a stock, let EX Buster be a regular invincible reversal, just like half the cast, right? Now, admittedly, her not having an on-demand reversal is by design. It's meant to be a character weakness. But again, let's give these buffs some reason to exist besides being EX Condor Spire dispensers. So if she has the buff and you're burning the bar, then that will make it full and vulnerable. That wouldn't make her strong. That wouldn't even make her mid-tier. It doesn't break the bank, but it gives her a reason to use the stocks besides the one singular move that you ever want to use the stocks on. And again, T-Hawk, Tomahawk Buster is invincible. So Lily's the one who's kind of messing around here. Hawk had that fine. He figured that out. And that's some ideas right there, right? The whole thing with Lily being bad and boring to fight is she has two moves. She has Crouch Heavy Punch, she has Enhanced Spire. That's basically it, right? Because what incentive is there to use the stocks on anything else? You're never purposely going to use it on a dive. You're never purposely going to use it like on a Buster. Like, you'll use it on Buster if you get the anti-air, and that'll just happen anyways, like incidentally. But it's never designed. You are building these stocks only to use Spire. And if a stock could somehow buff her command grab, if a stock could somehow make her Condor Dive more valuable to use, something you actually want to aim for in the course of a realistic match, right? That would vary her gameplay. It would make her more fun to play and make her more fun to fight against. And would she still be bad? Probably, but that's okay. Being bad is not a sin in and of itself. Again, I say this so many times, T-Hawk was bad, but boy howdy, he was a blast to play. I bring this video up on comparison only because, like, for Ryu, he got the racket strapped to him. They want Ryu to be good, and they patched and they patched and they patched until it was a forced issue and it was finally done. And there's other characters, like Lily's not the only one, like Honda, and no, even Jamie, at least Jamie they try, but it's just not sort of working out. But like, there's a lot of characters that are perpetually just in the doldrums in this game, and they ain't trying to fix it. They ain't trying to make it any better, it would seem, because like the buffs they've given Lily since the launch of the game are complete jokes. They barely change the character at all. They don't really move her forward. It's just a buff so you can say, oh, we buffed her. Look, see, that's technically better, therefore it's a buff. But it doesn't mean anything. Buff's a consequence. Again, I think Lily should just be reworked. I think you break her down and just like fundamentally change all of her mechanics. I think the buff system's like the worst thing that ever happened to her. It's like you need a buff just to make some of your moves even half worthwhile. And then again, the only worthwhile move to use it on is Condor Spire, right? Because it just gives you the plus frame. And then you hopefully, ideally, get a little bit of a strike throw mix going on. So there's a lot more you could do to vary her without having to rework her and make her better without having to strap a rocket to her and just force her to be broken like Ryu is. So that's just some of my thoughts on the matter. There's the big balance patch coming up. We don't know what's in it with Alex. It contains changes for every character in the game. That's really cool. And will any of these be implemented? Like, almost certainly not. Again, this is just a bit of a thought experiment. I expect the bigger patch to be with Ingrid, and that's when Season 4 will begin. And maybe it takes a new system mechanic, like something we don't know that just doesn't exist in the game as it currently stands. Like a new way to spend your drive gauge, a new way to interact with drive gauge, maybe a new move could tie it together, who knows? You know, in the history of Street Fighter, characters get new moves, they get new specials, they get new ways to play with the game mechanics. That hasn't happened yet in this game, so we're all still sort of waiting on it. So time will tell on that front. But that's my little experiment. If there's a character you would like to see some major changes for, by all means, post in the comments below. Let's get a bit of a love in here for some buffs for some of the lesser characters of the game, right? But that said, well, that's it for me. That's it for the video. And, well, thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well. And go out and play some Street Fighter.